Today, you're going to be hearing from Kevin Trowbridge at Kimray, Director of Compensation. And like I mentioned at the kickoff, I'm Logan. I'm with HR Bench on the marketing team. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about how to lead with culture, building a flexible workforce, making data and HR strategy. And then, like I said, we're 100% live today, and we will do a live Q&A at the end. All right. So before I have Kevin introduce himself as well as Kimray, I want to set the stage a little bit for the conversation that we're going to have today. And setting that stage is just acknowledging that there's a really big shift happening right now. And when I say that, it's likely the first thought is AI. And while AI is changing a lot, I'll acknowledge that. It's really only half the story. That's the story of the knowledge and white collar workforce. There, you're seeing increased layoffs, hiring freezes, and a smaller knowledge workforces. For example, tech alone has seen 650,000 layoffs in the past 2 years, running 3 to 4 times the norm. Now, white-collar professions more generally have seen unemployment jump 1%, and job postings are down 12.7%. But that's not the same story happening in arguably a much larger segment of companies and the labor force. There's an increasingly tight labor market and persistent labor shortages for frontline workforces. And this has been happening for years. There's a 40% workforce shortage in manufacturing and construction that the U.S. Bureau of Labor has mentioned. Now, one workforce is contracting and one is struggling to attract enough talent. It's a tale of two worlds, and HR and the folks joining us today are sitting right in the middle of it. So if you haven't thought about it from this angle, then you're probably seeing the effects at your company. And what it looks like is increased burnout, managers being overwhelmed, increased complexity in workforce planning, and employee upskilling programs being absolutely necessary to build a flexible workforce. It's a paradigm shift. And what I've been trying to toy with is this is bringing us into this era of strategic HR. And companies are going to have to lean into building a culture-led organization and back that up with data so that you can have strategic conversations with your executives. For example, companies that lead with culture, like we're going to find out Kimray does, have 4 times earnings and revenue growth and 3.7 times better stock returns. And employees validate this because they say, 76% of them at least, that employees have with companies with strong culture boost performance, and engagement correlates to 21% better profitability. So one thing that we're passionate about here at HR Bench is giving HR teams the tools they need to be strategic with the numbers like we just discussed, helping you build a culture-led organization that's informed by data. And 85% of CHROs say that people analytics and data is essential to their strategy moving forward. But 60% of those admit they can't leverage their current data. Knowing this reality, I want to let Kevin introduce Kimray before we get into our discussion to see how Kimray is doing exactly what strategic HR teams should be doing in this environment going forward. So Kevin, what should the audience know about Kimray?
Yeah, so my name's Kevin Trowbridge. I'm the Director of Compensation here at Kimray. Kimray is a 75-plus-year-old family-owned company. Our current CEO is third generation of that same family. They are currently bringing up the fourth generation to turn the company over to. The number one thing that Kimray focuses on is the culture of the company. There is nothing more important, honestly, to any of our leaders, and it permeates all the way down to the frontline workers than the culture here at Kimray. We work in manufacturing valves for oil and gas. So our founder revolutionized the oil and gas production industry, and Kimray has just continued that on for the last 75 plus years.
Awesome. And I love that you mentioned right at the start that leadership is completely bought in, and that is their number one focus on culture. Because that's really where we're going to start our conversation is what does it actually look like to lead with culture? And can you kind of give a sense of what that looks like day to day, Kevin, leading with culture?
Yeah, it starts with our mission. Our mission at Kimray is making a difference in the lives of those we serve. And that's not just at work. So, yes, we want to take care of our team members. That is a priority to our leadership, to our directors. It doesn't matter what level they want to take care of all of our workers, all of our team members. But it's also making a difference in our community. Kimray is well known throughout Oklahoma for the volunteer efforts, for the charitable contributions that Kimray does. And that all permeates throughout the company. You see it throughout the state where we are giving money or volunteering your time, and people know Kimray is a place that leads with that mission of helping others. And everything we do is done through that lens. Recently, we implemented job families here for a few different groups, and the first question was, how is this going to make a difference in their lives? How is this going to? It wasn't how is this going to affect the bottom line? I mean, obviously that plays a role, but the number one thing, how is this going to make a difference in their lives? How is this going to make a difference for our frontline workers?
Yeah, we're going to dive into that one pretty deep for everybody here and how you match something like making a difference in people's lives to the bottom line. But one of the things that you mentioned during our prep, that leading with culture first, that I really want to pick up on, is you start your hiring process with the culture fit interview first. To me, that seems you've completely flipped the interviewing structure on its head and gone in the reverse direction. What does that do for your hiring process and the retention of employees that come in?
Yeah, doing the culture fit interview first really makes a difference. And as they move throughout the process, there's that assuredness that they fit from a culture. And then you can see how they fit from your team culture. But the very first thing that we talk about, the very first thing in our interview process is this is Kimray's culture. This is what we expect from Kimray team members. Is this something you can do? Making sure that they're going to come in and take on that culture in their lives, whether it's in or outside of work. And then again, it goes throughout the whole interview process. So you see it at every level. Every interview, whenever I was first coming on board, was culture first, then skill set. What can you bring from your life experiences that will enhance our culture? And then, okay, from your work experience, how is that going to fit the role?
Yeah, and I have to imagine that affects your turnover rate. And I want to drop that now because I had one on your company slide, but you mentioned that it might even be better
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Our turnover right now, year to date, I think is sitting somewhere around 2.5 to 3%. So for a manufacturing company, it's unheard of. Honestly, I've been in other manufacturing companies. Turnover, especially with frontline employees, it's constant. And
Yeah.
I was just talking this morning to our warehouse leader, and he's really haven't had a whole lot of people leave. People are really getting on board with what we've put in place, and we don't have a ton of turnover. We have probably 50% of our workforce is frontline workers or more. And so we're constantly competing against others in our areas. Being in oil and gas, there can be large fluctuations for talent, especially in some of our outside stores. We do have stores in Midland, Odessa, in the Houston area. And you think about oil and gas in those areas, there's a lot of competition for talent, even frontline workers. And we have people come and they stay because of our culture, because of how we are as a company, how we treat our team members, not just what we pay people.
Yeah, 2 to 3% has to probably be one of the best turnover rates in manufacturing. I don't know, maybe there's somebody from our team, HR bench team on the call that can go run that benchmark and see where we stand, but that's top tier percent. And so in that, because competitive market that you're in, we'll talk a little bit about that, but the Kimray way probably has to also factor into this a little bit, right?
Yeah, the Kimry way is, like I said, it's driven by our mission, making a difference in the lives of those we serve. And the Kimry way is also following our core values. We have 4 core values that are deeply rooted, that were established by our founder, and they have just been carried for generation to generation. Everything we do is viewed through those values, through the lens of those values. We are looking every action we take, whether it's in compensation where I am or in our HR or people and culture team. That's the other thing. We're not called people or human resources. We are people and culture because culture matters. And part of what drives culture is your HR team, the people that are dealing every day with employee issues, and they reflect back what the Kimray way is. And our team is amazing at doing. I have I don't think I've met anyone who's afraid to come talk to HR, who's afraid to come talk to PNC. There's not that stigma of, oh, PNC's here. It's, hey, they're here to answer questions. They're here to help. They're here to give their time to help us better understand something that's going on, whatever it may be. And so our PNC team, our leaders, they have done a lot of work over the years to get us on that level. And it's amazing to see a company where, you know, their culture is driven by, and the Kimray way is known not just at Kimray as well. It is something that we market on our website. We market to other companies to bring our culture, our leadership to their leadership teams to help train them. So it's the Kimray way it's a very simple statement, but there's so much to it.
Yeah. And I would imagine it's what makes you an employer of choice, because if you have people sticking around and they're able in the community to talk about Kimray, and that makes it so that the stat that we started out with struggling to find and attract talent, I mean, you guys aren't necessarily experiencing, you might experience that, but not at the scale of somebody who's not leading culture first.
Absolutely. I think we have competitors in our area who pay more. And our starting rate is pretty competitive. It's the most competitive of any company that I've been at.
Yeah.
However, there are other companies in our area because of who we compete with for the same talent pool that pay more. And I've been here just over 9 months. And in that time, there have been people that have left. And within a month, they're coming back because the culture of where they went was not what they thought, and the value of that culture here is worth whatever pay raise they got going elsewhere.
Yeah.
And attracting talent, I could probably go ask our recruiters, but we don't struggle for frontline workers like a lot of companies may. We don't have to we have really good benefits. We have good, really reasons to come work for Kimray that are outside of the monetary reasons. And we just don't face that struggle for the majority of our frontline roles.
Yeah, that's a good segue because you talked about pay and all of that. And that was one of your biggest initiatives coming in, was running job families and around compensation. And I've tied it into the question here, how to build a flexible workforce, but the idea around job families and the compensation structure that you put in place drove that. So can you talk us through what that project looked like and creating job families and career paths for people?
Yeah. So building out those job families there was a lot of work already done. There was the desire to get there. There was just, how do we get it across the finish line? And luckily, I've done this at other places. So coming in, it was two things. It was showing them, how is this going to make a difference in those team members' lives, work and outside of work? And then showing them, okay, financially, we can absorb this within our budget. So the ability to build out two specific areas that we worked in were our assembly team and our warehouse team. Our warehouse and assembly, they didn't have job levels. They did from a training perspective, but they didn't have it from a actual job title, job pay perspective. And so we were able to tie numbers to various job levels, creating levels within those roles. And now team members were able to see, and our leaders as well were able to see, there's a training path here and it aligns with those job. If you are making yourself more valuable to the company, upskilling yourself, learning more about your role, we're going to recognize you for that and reward you for it financially. And just it's been about 4 months since we instituted it, we've had 10 to 15 people promote up into new levels, both in assembly and warehouse. So you're seeing people get re-engaged. I just talked to our manufacturing director today, and they said that the engagement that they're seeing, the re-engagement that they're seeing from their team members, it's been huge. People are asking, how can I do more? How can I learn more? How can I move up? What do I need to do? And a big part of that was we started and viewed everything through the lens of our mission. How is this going to make it better for everybody? And then we had the backing on the financial end to say it's going to fit within our budget. And when it did, one, I think everyone was shocked when it did, when we were able to say we made it through this whole cycle and we didn't blow everything out of the water. They were fairly surprised at that, but also leaders, you saw it from the front line up through their supervisors. People are just getting more excited and about being able to come in and be able to do more for their team members, for themselves, whoever it may be.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to touch on in that, because the culture first, what's super interesting is the culture of Kimray Ray, maybe I'm going to butcher this, but it was making the lives better of the employees. You did that by paying them more. And then on the bottom line, you came in under budget doing it. Like, you were able to say, we have this culture initiative that we're going to do, and we're going to back it up with data. And we made the company better from a business perspective on top of it. So you're probably having great conversations with the executives or
Absolutely.
in finance.
Yeah, our finance team, I think our VP of finance was surprised when I say under budget. We were $10,000 or $15,000 below budget, which razor thin, but it was below budget. So I think he was shocked by that. But the other thing that we were able to sell our executives on is when you build the ability to be rewarded for moving up for team members, if we lose a team member for whatever reason, someone else is there to pick up that slack because we have the people trained to do those, to do whatever that person's job was. Should we maybe we don't need to backfill a role. Maybe we don't need to have 65 people. We can have 60 and still operate and be just as efficient, just be just as timely getting our orders out. One of our big metrics is on-time delivery. We got to make sure we have the staffing to be able to do it. Well, if we have all of our staffing skilled in every area, whether it's building the boxes that the heavy valves go into or building the crates or whatever it may be, if we have everyone trained to be, you can interchange parts wherever you need it.
Yeah, that brings us full circle to the building a flexible workforce. You have the compensation, you're training people across different jobs. And one of the things, you didn't mention it here too much, but I remember from our preparation, you had said that you identify people and say, we want to train you on other areas of business. And that has to be highly motivating for team members to get chosen, not chosen, but to have that ability to grow within the org.
Yeah, during the building out of the families, there were conversations, and I think the direction is for our assemblers are going to learn. If there's slow time in the assembly area, they can go learn, whether it's pulling parts or whether it going into our warehouse area and learning the warehouse area, and vice versa. There have been conversations about potentially our warehouse people going and learning how to build our most commonly produced AAA valve. Okay, so our top selling product, most fundamental to our company. Why not teach warehouse workers, if we have a ramp up or a massive order for them, why not teach them to come learn how to do that? And then you have even more flexibility, and the pay for both roles is fairly competitive. So you're not necessarily looking at, oh, we have to give them a premium to go do this. No, it's giving them, they're getting cross skilled, not only upskilled and moving up, they're getting cross skilled across different areas of the company, and it's all within the same building. So it just has worked out really well.
Yeah. And then they become more valuable to the business. And that's where you start to have the data conversation with executives, like you had mentioned. And how has data become a driver for Kimray in leading with culture and backing with data?
Yeah, so data has been very critical to this whole process. Being able to go into the decision meeting on this whole project, and our leaders, I didn't have a whole PowerPoint put together on trying to sell it. I was like, here's the data. Here is what what I'm looking at. Here's how to interpret it. Here is what I recommend. And one, they're able to follow along. Two, we have the data to support everything that we are trying to do. So our forecasting, our budget analysis, we're saying we are going to stay within budget. We are going to stay, where we expect to be. And here are the benefits we could potentially see. People are going to stay because one, we're paying them what they're worth. Two, we're constantly helping them learn more about their role and potentially other roles. So they are seeing, hey, they're investing in me. So they want to stay with the company. And so our turnover continues to drop. And they're putting those things and showing those dominoes falling for our executives. It's been, honestly, I think for them, it has been eye opening to be able to see those dominoes put in place to fall.
Yeah. And so how are you now, like, how is that process done in real time now so that you can answer questions that you might be getting from your leadership team?
Yeah, so much of what we do is in HR bench. Ever since we put it into place, we'll get, hey, what's this? What's this metric? What's this metric? What's our time to hire, time to fill, whatever it may be. And we have the ability to go in and give them a real time answer from HR bench. It's also allowed us to do more. I was able to hire a analyst to be able to help build additional dashboards for very specific purposes that may not be something that is in HR bench, but the fact that we don't have to constantly build a dashboard for turnover or for headcount or for salary because it's there, we're able to utilize this person to build other dashboards for very specific purposes that can be used on a monthly, quarterly, weekly basis. And that has saved us a ton of money just having that specific person.
Yeah. And because your teams, and I think it's within your HR team and other teams now have access to this data, they're asking more questions. Like, what
Yeah.
has giving teams and managers and everybody real-time data, what has that done to empower them to make decisions?
It's given them confidence to make those decisions. So our PNC team, we gave them access shortly after we got set up and they've gone through the training and then they've asked really great questions. It's also prompted them, can we figure out this? Can we get this dashboard? Can we get this metric? So they have some pieces of what they want from HR Bench, a lot of the really good metrics and benchmarking, but then they're able to dig deeper. What does it look like in a year? How many people are we going to want to, how many people are we going to need to hire in the next 5 or 6 years because of our retirements, whatever it may be, in this specific area? When we've been able to build out that dashboard, because we don't have to do all the other metrics that are constantly available in HR Bench. The other piece is the surveys. Our team is looking at potentially using the exit survey functionality in HR Bench because we have a tool that we use, but HR Bench is constantly evolving and is going to be allowing a drill down into the responses. And that's going to be huge. And our team is going to start using. So there's just so many pieces that we can utilize from HR Bench, and those data pieces has given them more confidence to ask more questions, to look at more data, and confidence in what they're talking about. That's a whole nother thing is they have confidence that the data is right, that it's up to date. They're not talking about something 3 months old.
Yeah, that's good. Surprisingly, this section has blown up our question chat. I'm debating whether to go through key takeaways and just hit live Q&A right now so that we can do this. But at any rate, yeah, I think that I will go through the key takeaways as a lot of the stuff that we just ran through is giving real-time access. Some of the stuff that we talked about today, not totally cut it off and go through, is culture. I love how we were able to spend so much time talking about culture led and then pairing the data with it. And really, culture starts with developing employees. I think you mentioned 10 to 15 promotions. And I don't know anybody in the audience that doesn't love seeing people do great work and get promoted at work. I think that's super awesome. Building flexible workforces, cross-training people across the organization so that they can step in, speaking with data for leadership, exactly like you just mentioned, and empowering your internal teams with their own numbers. Kevin, is there anything else that you want to leave the audience with?
No, I just think there's so much value in the data. And I think the more data you can get into the hands of your leaders and be able to tell the story behind it, the greater impact you, your team, your HR team, and your leaders will have in telling the story to the rest of the company.
Yeah, that's great. Live Q&A. If you haven't put your questions in the chat, feel free to go ahead and put them in. But the first question is, how are you getting data in real time? So the question is, how are you getting it in real time? And I'm assuming, how are you getting data in real time?
Yeah, so our HR bench, HR bench works via API connection to our HR system. So all of they are mapped in real time. It is feeding back and forth from HR bench to, or I guess not back and forth, but to HR bench from our HR system. And that is giving us every day, it is updated with the new headcount, new turnover, any terminations, anything like that. We are getting that in real time.
Great. And then what data are you using to pull into HR Bench?
Oh man, there's so much data pulled in. Typical headcount metrics. So we headcount, salary, and ethnicity, and race, and gender, and birth date, hire dates. So we have the ability to look at headcount. We're able to look at turnover. We are able to look at 60-day, 90-day, 120-day new hire turnover. We're able to look at salaries, salary growth within specific groups. We're able to filter down into departments, business units. We can drill down by termination reasons. We can termination types. There's so many. And that's not even talking about applicant tracking. We can look at our requisitions. We can look at time to fill, time to hire, time to offer, time to acceptance. And that's just those buckets. And all of that is fed over to HR Bench via our HR system.
Yeah, that's good. So one next question is, do you think there's a hesitation around data sharing? Is there a fear of misinterpretation or a fear of judgment? Or how do you navigate that if you get it?
So in my past experience, yeah, there has been, because if you're sharing it just to share it, there's no story behind it, then yes, it leaves you open to interpretation, to panic. Honestly, if they see a number that looks out of whack, I haven't met a leader that won't have a slight heart attack. However, if you're communicating the data with the story behind it, always with the story, then you can have confidence that sharing that data is not going to get misinterpreted.
Great. Another question on the data that you bring in, do you use time card data such as sick time, vacation, etc.?
We don't. Right now, HR Bench doesn't have that piece, but I have no doubt that that is probably something on the roadmap. There's so much since we have started using HR Bench that has been added to HR Bench, that it wouldn't surprise me if down the road that was something. But what it has allowed us to do is, because, like I said, we're able to use the metrics in HR Bench reliably for common dashboards. We have been able to do analytics on sick time and vacation time and time card or time usage and potential changes to vacation and PTO policies, because we're not having to build all these dashboards over here. We can really dive into those types of questions.
Yeah. Okay. And I can confidently say we have lots on the roadmap, but here we go. Sorry, you got to give me a second. I'm going to sift through some of these questions so that I can grab another good one. I did put in the chat that you will get a recording of this. So all good there. So you mentioned that you're able to build dashes for very specific use. When it comes to gathering that data and getting it into the tool, what kinds of systems does HR Bench integrate with? And you combined data from different sources, API, SFTP manual. I think we got that one actually.
Yeah. So like I said, it's via API, and SFTP is where how all of our data gets into HR Bench. What I was saying with that is that the dashboards we're able to build outside of the system, we wouldn't be able to have built, because we would have been working on the regular headcount dashboards and turnover dashboards and ATS dashboards and salary dashboards. We've been working on all of those up to this point. And instead, we're able to do these kind of deep dive dashboards because we can trust what's coming out of HR Bench.
Yeah. All right, we're at the 35. If you're okay, Kevin, I'm going to do one more and then we'll close this whole thing out.
Good.
As an experienced, one came in and jumped my screen for me. As an experienced compensation professional who's relied on data to drive strategic pay decisions, what's the best way to educate HR generalists or business partners on the value of benchmarking key workforce metrics?
I think a big part of it is helping them understand. What I've done in the past has really helped my generalists really understand what compensation does. And when you get them confident and comfortable in a lot of cases, when you go to talk to them about the importance of benchmarking, it makes more sense because they're not as hesitant to look at the data. They're not as, in a lot of cases, scared of looking at the data because being a seasoned comp professional, you look at spreadsheets, you look at data all the time, and it's not typically what your generalists are having to look at. I've been lucky our generalists here at Kimray, they were exposed to data a long time ago, so it doesn't scare them nearly as much as it has. I've seen it happen at other places, but at the same time, they understand the importance of benchmarking. They understand the importance of, okay, this is what everyone else is doing. We don't have to be like everybody else, but it's important that we're at least competitive with everybody else because if you want to be an employer of choice, culture is so important, but it's all the pieces. Culture is number one, but then you have to have the other pieces in place.
Yeah. To close it out, I really like that. Like, culture is number one, but you have to have the other pieces in place in order to make it. It probably is the foundation for culture anyways. So, well, awesome, Kevin. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with us. This is by far my favorite part of my job, is getting to chat with customers and hear their stories. And I love organizations that are culture first and seeing what that does for their bottom line. Just to really close it out, how can HR Bench help you? It can help you gather all of your disparate HR data, get into a holistic view, and give you real-time insights into the culture initiatives you want to run, the executive questions that you might be getting, or preparing for a QBR. Feel free to go to hrbench.com/demo if you want to talk with our team. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody for sticking around and hanging out with us today. And it means a lot that you're interested in making your organization employer of choice, as well as building culture and then using data so that you can help the business be better with culture. So thank you again, Kevin. We really appreciate your time and joining us. And this was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
It's been a blast. Thanks, Logan.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon.